All right, here we go, everyone. Pizza Buffet live for Week 18 in the NFL, presented by FanDuel. I'm Rob Pizzola. I'm pro sports bettor, CEO here at the Hammer Betting Network. Welcome in, everyone. I just want to take 2 seconds, talk quickly about the games from yesterday, which I loved having the Saturday slate with 2 games that had significant importance. Obviously, a lot of the games today suck, and kind of indifferent on what the outcomes are going to be. I got to tell you, Brad Allen, Carolina. I'm not big on the NFL games are fixed or rigged. Everyone who watches me regularly knows that. I bet Carolina got very lucky with the win. Great touchdown catch in the end zone there. But one of the worst officiated games that I can remember in a long time. And I think that oftentimes people get carried away with it just being like, when all the calls are going in favor of one team. And I got to tell you, we cannot see that referee crew again in the playoffs. It is an absolute joke that crew, the Brad Allen crew, is officiating like these high leverage games late in the year. Like there's some bad refs out there. There's some that I honestly think do a good job, but they got to keep this guy away from the rest of those going forwards. San Fran, Seattle, low scoring game, but I found it very entertaining. That 49ers defense is just incredibly soft. And, I got to say this about the Seahawks. They kind of are lacking that killer instinct to put teams away right now. The offense just isn't there. It's either they're telling Darnold to protect the ball more, or he's just not comfortable making a lot of throws. You notice yesterday, just a lot of quick pump fakes when he had receivers wide open. There was one right at the goal line as well, where could have easily thrown for a touchdown, ends up taking a 13-yard sack. Really weird games yesterday. Flea flicker from the 25-yard line for the Panthers. Canales, what are you doing, man? Anyways, glad that we got a little taste of what playoff football will be like. Now, before we jump into the games, I just want to take a few minutes off the top here, because Week 18 is different. Plain and simple. First off, I was very under the weather this week. Had some sort of flu. Didn't get around to doing any content over the course of the week. So for a lot of you, this might be the first time that you're seeing my opinions or my numbers since I did the Sunday reset a full week ago. If you're here looking for, the plays, I'm going to set expectations right now. This is the most news-driven week of the entire season. And I'll be honest. I'm always honest with the crowd. It was a little discouraging seeing the amount of DMs and, private messages on Discord that I got while I was sick with what are the plays this week, especially yesterday, especially on Saturday. Week 18 is not a, tell me what to bet week. It is a stay on top of news week. It's probably the best week all season. It is the best week all season to beat the closing line by a mile. But that's only true if you're putting in work, if you're monitoring injury reports, team motivation, playoff scenarios, and you react to those faster than the market does when the information actually hits. So please keep this in mind going forward for next season. If it's not something you want to stay on top of in Week 18, that's totally fine. I'm not saying you have to, but probably best to just skip most of the games in the week if that's the case. Because Saturday in Week 18 is not the time for me to tell you, go out and bet this. Same thing for Sunday. Now, so here's how I want you to interpret what you're about to see today. I've done my best to price every single game, per usual. You'll see a graphic with my prices on every single game. My confidence level is way lower than normal across the board because there's just so much more guesswork involved, right? You might see a game where my number is way off market. And I want you to understand that doesn't automatically mean that I'm sprinting to bet it. It might just mean that the inputs are shaky because we don't fully know who's playing or how long they're playing or what the incentives actually look like once the game starts. Maybe I should have used a different word other than incentives because that's not a word I love to use in Week 18. One more thing that's really important this week because it's so information driven. I'm also very reluctant to step in front of heavy steam on game day, even if my number says the opposite. You guys know by now I don't love to bet game day a ton, but throughout the course of the season, I might trust my numbers a little bit more. In week 18, some of these moves aren't just, public news. It can be teams changing their usage, their snap counts, who's dressing, who's not, stuff that might not be fully out there yet. My information is not 100%. Your information is not 100%. If something is moving 3 points in an hour, there's a decent chance that somebody knows something and they're willing to bet a lot on it. So I'm not here trying to be a hero, fading every single move and, crossing my fingers and this one went too far. You will probably see me toe the line in more games than usual. And I know that can be frustrating for people, but at the end of the day, I'm trying to produce honest, transparent content. And that's kind of the point of week 18. The edge is often getting out ahead of moves, not chasing numbers after they've already moved several points, not automatically taking the other side because it looks inflated. There's also just not much appetite in the market this week for teams that don't have much to play for. And I get it. That's the dynamic we're dealing with. You'll often hear people say, they reference past against the spread trends, right? Teams with something to play for in week 18 they don't do well, historically speaking. They're poor against the spread. Listen, I'm not a systems guy. I'm not building my approach off past trends. I'm trying to build numbers off of who's going to be off the field. Once the market tends to become aware of, some sort of trend anyway, it tends to get priced in pretty quickly. So I'm not changing my process much, but I am changing the way that I treat uncertainty this week. That brings me to another point for today. Sorry for the rambling off the top. I promise I'll get into the games. This is one of the only weeks all season where I'm going to be at my computer live betting basically the entire day. I rarely do this, but week 18 is pretty strong for live betting, whether that's sides, totals, props, all of it. You're going to get some weird rotations. You're going to get some surprise usage from players. You're going to get guys missing snaps who weren't even on the injury report. You can learn a lot in the first few drives of the great game if you're actually paying attention. If you can only focus on one or two games at a time, do that. Lock in a couple spots, react correctly rather than trying to manage, 6-7 things at once and missing too many things. But ultimately, I do like to live bet in week 18 in the NFL. All right. A couple quick housekeeping items before we roll. One, if this show's part of your Sunday routine, please smash that like button, subscribe, share it out. We've had a fantastic season on this channel. Not just me, everyone who's been grinding with forward progress this year. G-Stack George, Suuma, Austin Mock, TA, Hitman. I mean, we've put in a lot of work this year. So the support matters more than you think. Number 2, shop for the best number, as always, especially this week. Limits are high, books are confident. If you're betting Sunday morning into markets where a lot of places are taking 6-figure bets because they believe they got a good number, you better at least make sure you're getting the best price available. Always check out FanDuel, our presenting sponsor as well. And 3, because the distribution is wider this week, there's more variance, there's more unknowns. I'm personally not in love with a lot of the teaser options this week for week 18. Traditionally, there's certain spots where you play teasers. Obviously, people know about the Wong teasers and stuff like that. You do whatever you want, but just understand there are more paths where the game you thought you were betting is not the game that you end up getting. There's a lot of uncertainty that kind of hurts the value of teasers. Finally, same reminder as always, while I'm doing the show, I'm not sitting here refreshing injury news. I'm not going to see actives, inactives. If you see anything important hit, any surprise scratches, unexpected, stuff that's out there, drop it in the chat. I'll adjust in real time. I will talk through it. One more thing. I swear I'll get into it. Props, anytime touchdowns. We're still going to go through that today. Less props than normal because there's less players listed across the board. Probably we'll still find like 3-4 things out there, but don't have a ton in terms of props today. Also, just because I've been dealing with flu, props kind of took a backseat for me over the course of this week. Anytime touchdowns, I'll give some out at the end. Again, not going to go crazy with this week. If there's someone that you really like for an anytime touchdown today or anything like that, You can drop it in the chat at any point with the price attached to it. At the end of the show, I'll let you know whether or not I actually think that that's an edge or not. All right. That's the Week 18 setup. Let's get into it. Early window first. So we'll go early window, late window, Sunday Night Football instead of rotation number order this week. Let's start with Green Bay at Minnesota. This market right now has just been steaming out all day, all morning, I should say, towards the Minnesota Vikings. We're now up to 12.5 across the board. FanDuel's total 36.5. That's, if you want the over in this game, FanDuel's best price in market. Rest of the market's 37. This game obviously means absolutely nothing for Green Bay. From a standings perspective, they're locked into the 7 seed. They're treating it that way. Clayton Tune is starting at quarterback. Jordan Love's resting. Matt LaFleur has been very clear that a number of starters either won't play at all or they will be rotated in and out. The only real objective for Green Bay here is to get out healthy and to get a look at, I guess, newly acquired Trayvon Diggs. Because of that, I don't think this game needs to be overthought. I know what my number says. I would not bet Green Bay at this price. I did bet some Minnesota here. I think that Minnesota is going to be a pretty pass-heavy team today. From a structural standpoint, it's about as rough a setup as you can get for Clayton Tune, third-string quarterback. Minnesota's defense under Brian Flores, very aggressive, especially in terms of pressure and blitz looks. They're facing a quarterback with very limited experience behind an O-line that's going to feature backups and rotational players. Don't like that. Green Bay's defense trending way down since losing Micah Parsons. Pressure rates falling off. Now they're stripping out even more depth from the secondary. They've put multiple corners on IR. I mean, I just don't know how you go and bet the Packers at this point. Minnesota side, nothing new to manage injury-wise. Jordan Mason's back at running back. Aaron Jones is out. J.J. McCarthy returns. McCarthy's been playing a lot better late in the season. He's got the hand injury. Even if he's not 100%, it's a very controlled environment for him. Home game, dome, no weather, a defense on the other side that's very clearly prioritizing health in this game. I also don't believe the Vikings bring McCarthy back unless he's good to go. And kind of like a showcase game, in my opinion, where I think that they'll try to sling it all over the field. Stylistically, sets up very well for the Minnesota offense. Trying to price the game, really tough. At this point, nothing to do. Next up, Colts at Houston. Texans are laying, was 10 at home? Yeah, so a little bit of money on the Colts this morning. That was related to Nico Collins being a healthy scratch today, which was kind of known. I know it wasn't out there public, but it definitely was circulating behind the scenes. So I was not surprised to see a little bit of a move there, but thought that was, I thought that was out there. So anyways, one of the trickier games to handicap because Houston's motivation is conditional. What they do in this game depends heavily on what's happening simultaneously with the Jags and the Titans. If the Jags are winning comfortably, I think there's a very real chance Houston pivots very quickly towards health. DeMeco Ryans is conservative by nature. He's publicly said they're playing starters. That doesn't necessarily mean 4 full quarters if the math starts to work against them. This also feels like a game where, a lot of early exits are very much in play for guys that have been banged up for the Texans. Nico Collins, as I mentioned, healthy and active. Trent Brown at right tackle. I mean, we don't know yet, but feels very unlikely that he's going to play in this game. From an Indy perspective, this is obviously a brutal matchup on paper. Riley Leonard against one of the most aggressive and efficient defenses in the league. The one thing working in his favor is protection. The Colts offensive line is mostly intact. They get Tanner Bortolini back at center off a concussion. He's going to play. Really, they're just missing the right tackle, Braden Smith. That matters a lot for a rookie quarterback in terms of structure, communication. All that matters. Now, Houston's defense is good enough to dominate this game early. Good pressure, coverage, even without Kamari Lassiter, run fits. It all favors the Texans defense, but that's not really the question. The question is margin here, right? And at double digits, you're betting that Houston kind of stays aggressive for a lot of this game. And because of that, I would only want the Colts here. 10, in my opinion, is a decent buy still on the Colts. Kind of ugly. You don't have to do it. You don't have to bet anything. I fully acknowledge this is an awful spot for Leonard. There's a very real path where Houston is clearly the better team. Their backup quarterback, Davis Mills, isn't a huge drop-off either. But there are too many plausible scenarios where the Texans just take their foot off the gas completely. They rotate heavily. They shut things down entirely once the bigger picture becomes clear. Obviously, there's going to be some correlation here with Jacksonville, Tennessee in real time. Consider that for live betting angles as well. At current numbers, Colts plus the points is the only thing I'm interested in. No props in this game. See a few suggestions. Jalen Noel overs. He was a guy that, I think a lot of the overs got bet quietly for guys that needed to be bet again with the Collins news kind of being leaked a little bit behind the scenes yesterday. Next up, Cleveland at Cincinnati. Finally, we're starting to see some Bengals money this morning. I was surprised that this line hung around. Now, not a massive movement. The 7.5s are gone. FanDuel's out to 8.5. We got some spots out to 9.5 as well. This total got bet up yesterday as well. I think it was 44.5, moved up to 45.5, some 46 in market, which I slightly disagree with. I don't have much on totals this week. Very, very little. I've been betting Cincinnati the last few weeks, at least last week. No, I faded them 2 weeks ago against Miami. Anyways, I think Cincinnati's underpriced again. This matchup lines up well for them on both sides of the ball. Starting with Cleveland's offense, it's just extremely limited right now. Harold Fannin is out, which means they're now without their top two tight ends. So Fannin and Njoku are both sidelined. That matters a lot for how this offense functions because they don't have enough reliable perimeter weapons to stress coverage consistently. And with Shadur Sanders at quarterback, that becomes problematic, right? He holds the ball too long. He takes unnecessary negative plays. Now he loses his primary safety valve in the middle of the field. The offensive line situation only makes it worse. It's a makeshift group at this point. And listen, this Bengals defense has quietly improved over the second half of the season. Cincinnati still is a bad pass defense overall, but they've done a better job of limiting explosive plays. They're forcing offenses to stay patient. That's not really how Cleveland is built right now. They're not a team that is going to slowly march the ball down the field. They just take too many negative plays to consistently do that. Defensively for the Browns, they've taken another hit as well. Carson Schlesinger, very likely defensive rookie of the year, goes on IR. He's been trending down a bit as the season's gone on, but they lose a starting linebacker. That further erodes a unit that's gotten worse as the year has gone on. On the Cincy side, the offense is in a good place structurally. Burrow's playing well. Passing game's efficient. They found ways to stay balanced enough to avoid putting the defense in constant bad spots. The coaching staff's been very clear that they're playing to finish this season strong. They've played like it. I mean, I'll give Zach Taylor credit. They have. I understand the instinct to be cautious laying points with Cincinnati, given their defensive issues in this specific matchup. Cleveland doesn't have the personnel to fully exploit those weaknesses, in my opinion. Without the tight ends, quarterback prone to sacks and stalled drives, it's hard to see sustained offense. So for me, this is Cincinnati again. I'm just not big on the Browns in this particular matchup this week. Did play a prop in this game. Just want to double check all the prop lines as I give them out. I played Jerry Jeudy over 3.5 receptions minus 120 at FanDuel. That is a pretty strong number in market relative to other spots. And this just comes down to essentially snap count usage as I model out the game, right? There's just, without Fannin, those targets got to go somewhere else, essentially. I thought Jeudy was a little bit too low. If you took a look at the season numbers, you'd be like, hard pressed to lay this type of price. But I mean, Judy's going to see 90% snaps, 80 to 90. Target share is going to increase. All right. We'll move through the rest of the early window in just a second here, but this is your reminder to get wrapped up in holiday football. Keep every drive interesting with FanDuel's Drive Same Game Parlays. Now you can bet on what happens each drive. Is it going to be a touchdown, a field goal, a stop? You stack in player props like rushing yards, receptions, who's going to find the end zone next. You build your bet exactly how you see it in real time as the game unfolds. And if you're new to FanDuel, there's even more, because new customers get $250 in bonus bets if your $5 bet wins. $250 in bonus bets if your $5 bet wins. So whether you're betting the next drive, next player to score, next big moment, make every snap count with FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/forward-progress to join today. That is FanDuel.com/forward-progress. You must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas and affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, 18 plus and present in DC, Kentucky, or Wyoming. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets. They expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. Terms are at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit rg-help.com. 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY in New York. All right, let's keep it moving here through the early window. A little bit of coffee. We keep it flowing. Cowboys at Giants. Dallas, now a 3-point road favorite at the Giants. Total in the game, 49.5. So Dallas took some money this morning. I haven't done anything with this game all week. I don't expect that to change right now. There are just too many moving parts. I have very little confidence in any number that I can make for this game. Starting with Dallas, we know Dak Prescott and the starters are going to begin the game. Beyond that, it's extremely unclear how playing time is going to shake out. The coaching staff's been pretty open about wanting to get Joe Milton some run in this game. That could happen after a quarter, could happen after a half, could happen anytime, depending on game flow. And once you introduce quarterback rotation into a road favorite, it becomes very difficult to price anything with confidence. Dallas also has some real personnel issues. O-line, defensively, DeMarvion Overshone, Trayvon Diggs, obviously no longer on the roster. Rookie Siobhan Ravel is out as well. So this isn't a fully intact Cowboys team, even before we start talking about rotation as well. On the Giants side, honestly, I struggle even more. You can find matchup angles that suggest New York should be competitive, especially against Dallas's defense, which is very bad. Gave up yardage to Josh Johnson last week. But the broader context is hard to ignore. The Giants are actively doing whatever they can off the field to not field a competitive roster. Theo Johnson is out with an illness, despite being at Madison Square Garden watching the Knicks play. A non-contagious illness for Theo Johnson. Andrew Thomas, John Michael Schmitz on IR. Multiple defensive linemen are gone. The secondary is extremely thin. Javon Holland and Cordell Flott are not going to play today. This roster just keeps getting lighter and lighter. And even though the coaching staff says they're approaching it normally, it's very hard for me to get involved with a team that Wan'Dale Robinson, thank you, Alan. Completely forgot about that as well. It's very hard for me to get involved with a team that appears to be doing everything structurally to position itself for draft capital. That doesn't mean they can't play hard. It just introduces another layer of volatility. So between Dallas's uncertain rotation, the New York roster situation, this just isn't a game I trust. So I passed this completely this week. I think there's just cleaner spots on the board. Next up, Saints and Falcons. Obviously, a game with playoff implications now. Should New Orleans win this game, the Bucs are in. Should Atlanta win this game, the Panthers are in. Current market has Atlanta laying 3.5 at home here to the Saints. Actually, wow, bet up to 4 net, even some 4.5s showing right now in market. One of the cheaper prices in market here at FanDuel for sure. Total in the game at 43.5. Okay. This is a tough one. I priced this closer to Atlanta -4 yesterday before there was some illness going around within the team. It feels like we're sitting in a bit of no man's land from a betting perspective now. This game really comes down to what New Orleans is able to put on the field offensively for me and why I can't get behind them, because the skill group they're traveling with is extremely thin. When you compare their opening day roster to this week, it is almost unrecognizable. Chris Olave being out is enormous for this team. He is the guy. Rashid Shaheed was traded earlier in the year. Trey Palmer's on IR. Devon Vele's on IR at running back. No Alvin Kamara, no Kendry Miller, no Devin Neal at tight end. Foster Moreau, Jack Stoller. That's a massive amount of attrition. And it puts a lot on Tyler Shuck to function with replacement level weapons. That's a tough ask against an Atlanta defense that's been playing better up front. The Falcons' defensive line has generated real disruption recently. They're facing a Saints O-line that's going to struggle to stay ahead of the chains if they fall behind early. Even if New Orleans wants to lean on the run and shorten the game, Audric Estime did have a good game last week. The lack of explosive threats is going to make this very difficult to sustain drives. On the other side, Atlanta's in a very favorable setup. The Saints' defensive front is thin. They have no Brian Brzee, no Nathan Shepard. That's not where you want to be against a Falcons team that just wants to run the ball, especially downhill. Bijan should see consistent volume in this game. Kirk Cousins has been steady when protected. The short week isn't ideal after Monday night. I'd like to really see the inactives for this game before making a final call here. But overall, I get where the market's where it is. Falcons are healthier, potentially. I think they're the much more functional team right now with no Olave for the Saints. Few things that have come up in the chat that I just really want to get to quickly. The awards market stuff quietly has tilted me very hard this week, because you do have the possibility of Tyler Shuck winning Offensive Rookie of the Year. You have the possibility of Bijan Robinson, I guess, winning Offensive Player of the Year, priced in the 35-1 range. I get frustrated when people are making the case for why these people should be live. It's an awards market. Work backwards. Who are the voters? Start there. The public list of 50 voters from last year is available. So take those people, put together some sort of do some work, figure out what these people have been saying for the last several weeks, and start there. Some of the awards talk just drives me nuts. It's wow, if Bijan sets the scrimmage yards record or whatever, he's going to have to be. It's well, no one has really been talking about Bijan that's voting on the award, really. I'm not saying he can't win, right? It's all dependent. It's all relative to price. But I just don't understand here's the case for this guy. Who cares? The voters are the voters. You're not getting them in a room where you get to put on a PowerPoint presentation of this is how the guy should win. They're voting based off of their own personal biases and what they've wanted all year. Teddy Bruschi's one of the voters. You think Teddy Bruschi is going to not vote for Drake May or Mike Vrabel? No, lock it in. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But anyways, I digress. Back to the games. Titans at Jags is next. Current market has at FanDuel is Jacksonville laying 13.5. Wow, this total got bet down this morning as well. That's one of the few games that we've seen action on the total. Early over money, which I agreed with. Late under money, which I agreed with. I'm kind of in between on that price for the total. Okay, this one's interesting. I don't really have a strong opinion. Jacksonville obviously has everything to play for. They win the division. Normally, you got to be careful in these spots because you're paying a quote unquote must win tax, right? Historically, as I mentioned off the top of the show, fading these types of spots can be profitable because sometimes the price gets inflated. The issue this week is I'm not sure we're seeing that premium as much as we're just seeing a price because Tennessee's defense is simply falling apart. The Titans are basically down to replacement level bodies on the back end. Jalen Armour-Davis is out with the Achilles. Amani Hooker out at safety. That's on top of like 5 corners and safeties who are already on IR or traded earlier in the year. You lose Arden Key up front as well. So you're asking a very beat up defense to survive against a Jacksonville passing game that can spread you out with depth. Jacoby Myers, Brian Thomas Jr., Parker Washington, Brenton Strange, even the running backs are good pass catchers. They can really create favorable matchups all day. On the Jacksonville side, health is much cleaner. Patrick McCarry's out at right guard. It's not nothing, but it's not a spot that changes how they want to play. They get Hainsey back at center. Much more important for stability. Overall, it does set up for Jacksonville to have success through the air and stay on schedule. The only reason I'm not more aggressive is the Titans offense. I mean, the total getting bet down from where it was is understandable. We've been here before with these two teams. I played over in the first matchup between these two teams. The Titans could not move the ball enough to keep the game up. Like, they just couldn't, period. Trailing game state all game. They couldn't do anything offensively. Now, the offense has been better lately. It's still below average. If they stall early, I think the over gets fragile pretty quickly in this game. Another dynamic to keep in mind, game state and scoreboard watching. I know Jacksonville needs to win the division and get that home playoff game. But if they get up big and it becomes clear that Houston is pulling starters in their game or losing to the Colts, you could absolutely see the Jaguars taking their foot off the gas late as well. That's well within the range of outcomes, right? So it's a tough game overall for me. At the current market, I think it's fine. I played Alec Iomanner over 2.5 receptions. Minus 140 at FanDuel right now is the best price. I would not go much further than, 155 would be borderline for this. But 80% snap share at the bare minimum, too small in a likely trailing game state to have him lined like this. I kind of also like Tony Pollard under on rushing yards in this game. That one's pretty scary when you consider how much of a run he's been on lately. But he got outsnapped by Tyjae Spears last week. In games where the Titans are trailing, Spears does get more snaps. I don't know that, 18 plus carries is in the cards for Tony Pollard this week. Incentives for sure, but we'll see. Also, a lot of teams pay out these incentives when a player gets close anyways. That's like another thing with the incentive week that drives me crazy. You've seen a million times before where players get paid out, even if they don't reach a certain incentive or they come close. But we'll see. Fade in the incentive on Pollard. All right. Before we get into the late window, real quick, if you've been riding with this show all season, or you've picked up even one thing that made you a sharper better, please just take 2 seconds, hit that like button, subscribe. As I mentioned earlier, we've had a great season on this channel. It's not just me, it's the entire team. Subscribing is the easiest free way to support our work here at Forward Progress. We're also right on the doorstep of 10K subs. If you've been meaning to do it, this is the time. It helps more than you think with the algorithm. If you're watching on X, a quick retweet would go a long way as well. All right, let's get back into it. I saw some of the inactives posted in the chat. Nothing that has fundamentally changed anything for me so far in the early games, in the sense that there's not much of a surprise. Good to see Mooney, London, and Pitts active for the Falcons. It doesn't mean they're going to play a lot. We don't know yet, but that was the one that I was holding out for at this point. All right. Dolphins at Patriots. Let's start the late window. New England at FanDuel laying 13.5 right now. Again, this is one that's seen a steady stream of action one way. Total in the game, 45.5. Again, a tricky game because New England's incentives are very real, but they're also conditional. They can earn the number 1 seed, but they're going to be scoreboard watching Denver. If that game gets out of hand, you absolutely have to consider the possibility that the Patriots pull starters. Directionally, my numbers lean to the over, even accounting for some risk of starter removal. That said, I'm not comfortable betting this pre-inactives because there are too many moving parts, especially on the Miami side. Miami's going to be extremely short-handed offensively. We already know Devon Achane is out. Jalen Waddle's going to miss. Darren Waller is on IR. That's basically their entire skill position core gone. On top of that, their starting center and right tackle are both questionable, which is a big deal considering they have no skill position players in this game. So again, one that I probably would wait on inactives for. New England does have defensive issues as well. Harold Landry's out again. Robert Spillane is out again. Kairos Tonga's out again. Last week showed that even a compromised Patriots defensive front can function fine against an offense that can't protect or separate. With Miami missing Achane, Waller, Waddle, this starts to look structurally very similar to what we saw against the Jets. On the other side, New England's offense should have very little trouble moving the ball. Miami's secondary is thin with Minkah Fitzpatrick out. There's uncertainty around Chop Robinson and Jordan Brooks. They're listed as questionable. I don't know if they would play today. It's a meaningless game. Milton Williams is back. Will Campbell's back for the Patriots. Limited snaps, trying to get them going before the playoffs. But honestly, Patriots should be able to move the ball however they want to in this game. It's a tough one. For me, this is a wait and see. Too many scenarios where this could change based off of who's active and who's inactive. I didn't see that Jordan Brooks was out. If that's the case, I missed that one. But disaster team for the Dolphins. From a prop perspective, I played Hunter Henry under 4.5 receptions. FanDuel's minus 116. Best price in market is minus 113. I think you can pick several starters for the Patriots where this might be worth a look. I'm hoping Jack Westover is active today for New England. He typically plays fullback, but he lines up at tight end as well, and he kind of serves as their third string tight end. If he is active, I'll probably add a little bit more to Hunter Henry unders, provided that it's still in this type of range. But probably going to see more of Austin Hooper, CJ Dupree as well, who's their another tight end on the roster. I think 4.5 is just too much when you consider the likelihood that starters will be pulled. I mean, Hunter Henry's normally an 80% plus snaps guy. He got down to 65% last week in a blowout. Could easily see below 50% this week. Chiefs at Raiders is next. This is one of the stranger numbers on the board this week. All right. Kansas City is currently minus 4.5 at FanDuel with the total at 36.5. Some of the sharper spots have already moved to 4 in this game. This game is meaningless. Well, actually, it's not true. There's a caveat to that. If the Raiders lose, they lock up first overall pick. And they've made it very clear in recent weeks that they're comfortable helping that outcome along off the field. They've already put Brock Bowers and Max Crosby on IR. And that matters because it tells you the organization is fully aware of what's at stake here. That alone makes this game a dangerous handicap, especially from a motivation standpoint. That said, purely on who's actually taking the field, I'm very off market towards the Raiders. I don't say that lightly. You look at my number in the game, it's nowhere close to the market. Kansas City's down to their third string quarterback in Chris Oladokun. The Raiders are rotating Kenny Pickett and Aiden O'Connell, which isn't good, but I don't think it's meaningfully worse than what Kansas City is doing. At the skill positions, the Chiefs are missing Rashee Rice and Tyquan Thornton. Xavier Worthy might not play. That narrows the gap quite a bit to what Vegas is fielding. Up front, both offensive lines are in rough shape. I don't see a big trench edge either way. Defensively, Kansas City has multiple corners on IR. There's even talk about them potentially resting George Karlaftis today, their best edge rusher. This doesn't look like a spot where one team clearly dictates the terms of the game. So the entire handicap comes down to trust. Can you trust the Raiders to show up knowing that a loss gives them the first overall pick? That's the risk. It's very real. But teams have absolutely won Week 18 games before and cost them the top pick in the draft. It happens. And even if Vegas loses, there are plenty of game scripts where they can still cover 4.5. Because of that, I did bet some Raiders this week. I'm not treating my number like gospel. I'm not Kelly staking like my number is perfect. But at this price, I think the market is overstating how much of a difference there is between these teams. Motivation is definitely a concern. That's why this play stays small, but it's definitely a play. All right, before we get into the next game, Kirk Cousins is dealing with some sort of illness. It seems from the chat that he's going to play, but he is ill. So immediately I would think to, obviously, Kirk Cousins unders would be the first thought. Any sort of rushing overs for the Falcons would be another one as well. Fundamentally, that would, stop me from betting any Falcons at this point or another. Trying to think of, I think Atlanta's backup is Easton Stick. Pretty sure it's Easton Stick, which would be a pretty big drop-off if he had to come in at any point in the game. So that's where we're at. Next up, again, I'm very happy to fade incentives in the chat. Every time I bring up somebody that has incentives in the chat, somebody seems to point out that there's an incentive on the player. I don't give a shit. If the player is going to be way overpriced because he has to meet a specific target, I will happily fade it. Did this in Week 18 last year to a ton of profit. I'll do it again this week. There was the Kendrick Bourne one last night where he needed 9 receiving yards and people were just blasting his overs. He didn't get anything in the game. There's a football game to be played. And again, I want to urge you to understand that lots of teams will pay out the incentive if it's close. Team could easily approach someone before the game, like a Hunter Henry. I'm not saying they did, but like a Hunter Henry, and be like, listen, Hunter, we want to keep you healthy for the playoffs. We know you want those 5 catches, but we're going to sit you late in the game. They pay out the incentive. All right. Especially teams like the Patriots who have money. Please, 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 you do not need to inform me of what incentives players need to hit. I can assure you that not only am I aware of them, the market is aware of them, the books are aware of them. And the fact that people keep betting these overs on player incentives is why we can still bet the unders on them. Guaranteed Hunter Henry now catches 5 for that particular reason. Tony Pollard, a lock now for 67. My rants typically don't end all that well. Lions and Bears. Oh my. Bears taking money this morning. They are now out to -3.5, -120 at FanDuel. It's basically the equivalent of a 4, which is what it is across the market. FanDuel's the only spot I see a 50.5 as the total. Actually, it's not true. There's one more other spot. If you like the over in this game, this is your spot. This one had shifted for me dramatically over the week. My first reaction to early lines last week was kind of having some interest in Detroit, but wanting to wait to see how they would approach this game. Turns out the injury report is honestly very bad. And there's some signal that, for me, that came from Dan Campbell this week, where he was very public about not wanting to put anyone's health at risk in this game, which is not what I would have expected to hear from Dan Campbell in a division finale to potentially cost, his old OC some playoff seeding. But that matters to me, at least, especially when you pair it with the actual personnel issues that Detroit is dealing with. Up front, this Lions offensive line is in really rough shape. Penei Sewell is out, best right tackle in football, massive. They're dealing with illness across the rest of the O-line, including Coyote Awushika, who had to play some left tackle last week, Christian Mahogany on the interior, and that's before you even get into some depth concerns for them. That's a real problem against any team in the league. The Bears definitely have one of the weaker defensive fronts, but this evens the playing field a lot. At the skill positions, Amon-Ra St. Brown, been dealing with that ankle injury. Even if he plays, it's hard for me to imagine him being pushed in a meaningless Week 18 spot. Defensively, Detroit's also thin. Alex Anzalone is out. Thomas Harper's out. Their secondary's been stretched for most of the season. Chicago isn't without its flaws. Winning by margin has been a consistent issue for them. They're very turnover dependent on defense. Teams do move the ball on them. There's also illness going around their locker room last week and this week. That's not ideal, but structurally, I do think this sets up well for the Bears. There's a chance Rome Odunze comes back, which would give them their full receiver group. If Detroit's O-line can't hold up, it's really hard to see them sustaining offense, especially if Chicago leans run heavy and shortens the game. So for me, tough game at this point with the way it's been priced. I slightly lean towards the under, mostly because Detroit's offensive line issues could cap their efficiency and push this towards a slower script. But as are many this week, tough game. Jets and Bills is up next. This is a very tough game to price with a lot of moving parts. Current market for the Bills has been steamed into oblivion this morning. All right. 11.5 at FanDuel. This is kind of our price across the board for the most part right now. I'm going to make it clear directionally. I guess you'll see my number. It will lean Jets. I am never betting Jets here, especially after this market move, even fully accounting for the fact that the Bills may be playing backups for most of the game. Now, here's the reason why I cannot bet Jets here. I originally would have been stunned if Josh Allen is out there for more than what I would call a ceremonial appearance. It's the last game at Highmark Stadium. I figured, okay, you know what? Maybe he takes a drive in the early going. He's dealing with a foot injury that's required x-rays in back-to-back weeks. There's just not a real incentive to put him at risk. But the betting activity in this game would at least indicate to me that maybe someone knows something or thinks they know something, and potentially Allen could get more run than anticipated in this game. I would have thought this is almost certainly a Mitch Trubisky game for the vast majority of snaps. Now I don't know. Sean McDermott says healthy starters will play. We've heard that kind of thing before. I don't expect key guys like Dalton Kincaid or Joey Bosa, who are carrying pre-existing injuries, to be pushed if there's any risk. Defensively, Buffalo's shorthanded as well. There's no Terrell Bernard, no Daquan Jones, no Jordan Poyer. It's a pretty makeshift unit on defense, but the matchup still heavily favors them because the Jets offense, like Brady Cook, cannot move the ball. Pass protection is a mess. He holds the ball way too long. Skill group is depleted. Breece Hall is now shut down. On the other side, the Jets defense is basically unrecognizable compared to the start of the season. Will McDonald went on IR. Michael Clemens is out. Jay Tufele on IR. The secondary's completely gutted. Now Brandon Stevens pops up with a neck injury all of a sudden on Friday, and they rule him out. I mean, they're down to corners who weren't even remotely close to the original rotation to start the year. There's also a very clear organizational trend here as well. The Jets have been shelving players and managing injuries for like a month now in a way that aligns with draft positioning. This game means nothing to them in the standings. Whether Aaron Glenn is coaching for his job or not, the roster decisions suggest that maybe they've told Aaron Glenn his job is safe for next year, provided, he just takes it easy down the stretch. Tough game to price. Obviously, market seems to maybe know something that I don't in regards to the Bill starters. Or honestly, there's actually a very clear path to Mitch Trubisky winning this game by 2 touchdowns as well. That's how bad the Jets are right now. Commanders-Eagles is up next. And it was a flood of Commanders money this morning. We've hit 3 in some spots, 3.5, most of the board right now. Total sitting around 38.5, 39. I was basically right on market here, but now with the steam, I lean directly towards the Eagles. What's strange to me is the Eagles' approach. They've essentially decided to punt this game by resting most of their key players, even though there is a path to number 2 seed if things break right. I mean, they're still favored in the game. But if the Bears lose, the Eagles could move up and potentially set themselves up for 2 straight home playoff games. I mean, that's meaningful. I expected some scoreboard watching, but they're starting Tanner McKee. They're holding out a ton of core pieces for this game. That said, I don't actually mind McKee. He is competent enough. In a vacuum, I'd still rather have him than what Washington is rolling out there. Commanders are starting Josh Johnson again, their 3rd-string quarterback. Forget about what you saw against Dallas last week. That's one of the worst pass defenses in football. This is a much tougher spot, even against an Eagles team potentially resting starters. Washington's O-line is in terrible shape. They're now without their left tackle, left guard. They're starting center Tyler Biadasz, who went on IR. That's a brutal setup for any quarterback, let alone a 3rd-stringer. And defensively, they've been unable to get off the field all season. That hasn't changed at all. On the Eagles side, okay, no Dallas Goedert, no Lane Johnson, no Jalen Carter, no Nakobe Dean, no Marcus Epps. I think those are the main ones. That's a massive chunk of their spine. They're clearly prioritizing health for those guys. But there's still incentive for them to win this game. Like I said, the 2 seed is valuable. It's not only just that getting to play the Packers in the first round, who are very beat up, but it's then hosting another playoff game if you win. Makes a big difference. So while Washington, is taking money in the market, this is one that I am slightly considering here in terms of playing the Eagles. Tough one. Cardinals-Rams. This game actually matters now for Los Angeles, and you've seen the market react accordingly to that. With Seattle beating San Fran last night, a Rams win here locks them into the 5 seed, which means opening the playoffs against Carolina or Tampa Bay instead of Chicago or Philly. That is a materially better outcome, and the market reacted immediately to that. Rams moved all the way from 8 up to 13.5. Now you're got Rams money this morning, 14.5. At this point, I believe the Rams value is gone. I understand the steam. Directionally, I agree with it. I'm not chasing it at this price. The Rams still have a lot of uncertainty on offense. Devontae Adams has been banged up. Kyron Williams and Blake Corum are both dealing with issues. The offensive line's not in great shape. Alaric Jackson at left tackle is questionable. Kevin Dotson is out at right guard again. That limits how aggressive they can be structurally, especially early in the game. Now, that said, Arizona is one of the few teams that they can't really punish you for those weaknesses. It's going to be no surprise to anyone who's watching now. I mean, I faded the Cardinals for weeks now. It's almost entirely been personnel driven. Marvin Harrison Jr. shut down for the year. At this point, they're missing 5 wide receivers, 3 running backs, and a tight end on IR. 4 offensive linemen are out again. The defensive line is thin. The secondary is wrecked. There just isn't much functional NFL talent left on the field for them. The main risk here is how the Rams handle the game once it starts. And that's why I wouldn't want to chase this number. Sean McVay says starters will play. And the game, of course, does matter. But historically, Sean McVay tends to lean towards the cuck side of coaches. I don't know how much stock. I mean, in the past, the Rams have not put a lot of stock into playoff seeding. Now, obviously, it matters a lot more this year, but there's a very real scenario where this game is, Rams up 17 at the half, and we see them pull back big time in the second half, or at least manage reps aggressively. So overall, I get why the market moved. Arizona's in brutal shape, top to bottom, but there's real uncertainty about Rams playing time, even with this game being something to play for. So I wouldn't get involved at this point. That said, Jimmy G's the backup, pretty solid backup. Could be a lot worse for them. Chargers Broncos is next. This is one of those, I guess, kind of very similar to the game that I just talked about. I mean, there's zero appetite for anyone to bet the Chargers in this game, and the market steamed out all the way to 14.5 at FanDuel. Most of the market's sitting at 14 here. Listen, Denver clinches the number one with a win. The Chargers are locked in the playoffs. They're resting players. On the surface, that explains the move. I still find it tough to get comfortable laying this kind of margin with Denver. I will say for the Broncos, the health situation is pretty clean for this time of year. John Franklin Myers might miss on the D-line. Dre Greenlaw's out again at linebacker. Overall, aside from that, this is a very stable roster. The issue is more about the offense. We've seen it all year. They can look efficient and balanced one week, and then they struggle to sustain drive the next week. That inconsistency matters when you're being asked to win by more than 2 touchdowns. Right? That's not to say that the Broncos can't steamroll anyone. They played a very similar spot against the Chiefs in the final week of the season last year. They annihilated the Chiefs. All I'm saying is that you get a lot of inconsistency when it comes to that offense. On the Chargers side, tons of uncertainty. Trey Lance is starting. That's behind an O-line that's been very shaky. His mobility will help him survive, but this is a brutal defense to face if you can't consistently protect or push the ball downfield. We also don't really know who's playing at running back. It's a very banged up group. Defensively, they're missing bodies as well. A lot of volatility here in this game. For me, it's a clear no bet. I would say Chargers are nothing, honestly, but nothing is the right answer, in my opinion. Small prop look here. I played Trey Lance over 15.5 completions at minus 120. 15.5 at minus 120. Banged up Chargers running backs, trailing game state. When you're starting quarterback in a backup quarterback in a meaningless game at the end of the year, there's no sense in handing the ball off 50 times. 20 completions for Lance in his only start for Dallas last year under similar circumstances. It's not anything big. I'm not super confident in it, but I do think that number is a little bit short. All right. We're going to get into Steelers-Ravens on Sunday Night Football in a second. Quick programming note for tonight, because it's a big one. We're doing a live watch-along for Sunday Night Football right here on Forward Progress. It's going to be me. It's going to be G-Stack George. We're joined by Jeff Feinberg, Ian McMillan. We don't normally go live for Sunday night, but for a game like this, we decided, let's do it. We'll be on 8 p.m. Eastern time. We'll run through props before the game, SGPs, anytime touchdowns, all the stuff you want before kickoff. Then we'll ride it out live. Once the game ends, we're not done. We're doing a separate Sunday reset after that. It's the final Sunday reset of the season. It'll be me and Clive. We're recapping the full slate, the season as a whole. We'll turn the page to the playoffs with a first look at the 6 locked-in matchup for the playoffs as well. If you can catch it live, awesome. If not, you'll wake up Monday. It's ready to go. Throw it on during your commute. Throw it on at work, whatever it needs to be. And for the playoffs, we're keeping the schedule as consistent as possible as well. So Tuesday, 5 p.m. Eastern time, early week best bets. That's G-Stack and Suuma. Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern time, late week best bets. That's me and Austin. Pizza buffet next week moves to Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Saturday pizza buffet next week, so we can get you set before the Saturday kickoffs. Plus, we're doing live watch-alongs for every night game throughout the playoffs, the exception of the Super Bowl. So next week, that's going to be Saturday the 10th, Sunday the 11th, Monday the 12th. And we're going to keep it rolling all the way through the playoffs. All right. If you like the content schedule, just smash that like. Ravens Steelers. This is a really difficult game to feel great about. Current market is like this in between 3 and 3.5 type of price. I will say the total took some over money. It got bet down to 40.5 and then back up to 41.5. I did bet some under earlier in the week. Listen, at current numbers, I guess small lean to the under. Everyone's expected to play for Pittsburgh aside from DK Metcalf, who's suspended. But the offensive issues go beyond that. Darnold Washington goes on IR. That matters. He was a player that could win one-on-one. Without him and Metcalf, this becomes a very condensed, low-ceiling offense. And that's been reflected in recent weeks. The good news for Pittsburgh is on defense and in the trenches. They get TJ Watt back. Nick Herbig is back healthy. Both corners, Brandon Echols, James Pierre are back. Isaac Samalo back on the offensive line. Even if these guys aren't 100%, having them available is a massive upgrade in a do-or-die game. For Baltimore, Lamar Jackson is back after missing last week with a back injury. That's the biggest variable in this game. We don't really know what his health looks like. If the week off fix some things, then the Ravens' baseline changes significantly. But they're thin at receiver. Rashad Bateman is out with an illness. Marlon Humphrey's also sick in their secondary. It feels like something could be going around that locker room as well. I expect Baltimore to lean heavily on Derrick Henry, especially given Pittsburgh's issues defending outside runs. I think this shortens the game. I think it supports the under, but it also makes laying more than a field goal on the road uncomfortable. Overall, tough handicap. I'm looking forward to watching it in real time tonight. Prop look for this game. I bet, let me just double check that it's still available. DeAndre Hopkins, at FanDuel, great price. Over 1.5 receptions at -114. Nuck, over 1.5 -114. With Bateman out, I'm going to say you get minimum 30% snaps for DeAndre Hopkins. Maybe even as high as 50%. He lost some snap share to Devontae Walker, but with this being such a critical game, I could see Harbaugh really relying on a veteran presence to be out there. So over 1.5 receptions, -114 for DeAndre Hopkins. Okay. Thank you very much for the $50 super chat at RPNQ5NJ. It doesn't go unnoticed. Appreciate that. Again, all that just gets filtered right back into the Hammer. We pay our staff. We try to do more content, bigger and better things. Onwards and upwards, as they would say. Quick rundown of the board as it stands right now. Minnesota, Green Bay, said my piece on that. I don't know how you bet Green Bay now. Tennessee, Jacksonville, ever so small lean towards Tennessee in the over. Indy, Houston, I think Indy at 10 would be playable, certainly. Dallas Giants, nothing there. Cincy, Cleveland, I think most of the value is gone there now as since he took heavy money. New Orleans, Atlanta, this one is kind of bouncing around at this point. The Kirk Cousins stuff just makes it like, what do I want to do here? And the answer would be pass. Miami, New England, tough one there because of the Patriots' motivations. Saw a lot of Patriots first half mentioned in the chat. Obviously, that's been adjusted for the fact that they will probably play starters in that half. Tough call altogether. I'm going to wait for inactives for that game. Arizona and the Rams could only be the Rams at this point. Detroit, Chicago, that is a lean towards the under. Washington, Philly, -3s. I think I like the Eagles there. Jets, Buffalo, I'm not going to mess around with that game. KC, Las Vegas. Las Vegas 4.5 is a buy for me. Chargers, Denver, not going to do anything there. Same with Baltimore, Pittsburgh, ever so slight lean towards the under in that game. Okay. I will give out my touchdown scores and then I'll quickly go through the chat. And thank you again, RP, for the $50 donation and maybe react to some of them that we've gotten over the course of the day. So really quickly here, let me just see what's available to me across the board. All right. Let us start with, I want to find stuff that I like that has good prices at FanDuel. Probably going to do like 3 today, let's say. Let's go with 3. Let's start with Arizona and the LA Rams. Cardinals, Rams is going to be our starting point. And we are going to go with Cardinals running back Michael Carter at plus 350. Michael Carter plus 350 is going to be our guy. Next up, Raiders-Chiefs. Raiders-Chiefs in the late window. We're going Raiders tight end Michael Mayer at plus 380 in that. That one has plenty of room to play, in my opinion. Plenty of room. I think both of the ones I've given out so far are good across the entire market. Let's also go Cleveland, Cincinnati. And we are going to go Bengals tight end Noah Fant at plus 700, 7-1 in the game. 7-1 there. And we'll leave it at that. We'll go 3 for official record keeping. I know people are looking for some long shots today. I'm not saying that there aren't any out there. I just don't see anyone that is extremely mispriced in the long. All right. You know what, Kyle? Can we get a 4th today? Let's get you a 4th today. All right. Let's do this one. Let's go Patriots and Dolphins. Patriots and Dolphins. We're going to go Patriots wide receiver Kyle Williams. FanDuel plus 390. There is some plus 425 out there. I think there's some decent room on that one as well. So we're gonna leave it at those 4 for now. Again, bet responsibly. You know, these aren't going to win forever. There's weeks where they are going to lose. All right, really quickly, let's get some from the chat here and see where I'm at. Riley Leonard 5-1. I know Riley Leonard is a scrambling quarterback. It's hard to really price this one. I don't have an edge at this number. I don't hate the look though. Blake Whiteheart 9-1. Let's see what I make Blake Whiteheart. Yeah, I mean, listen, he's going to get the majority of the snaps for the Browns at tight end. Borderline lean yes on Blake Whiteheart. Dearness Johnson is our next stop here. Anytime touchdown, 12-1. See what my fare is on Dearness Johnson. Yeah, see, I like this one. Again, I don't know how the Patriots backfield is going to shape up as the game goes on, but that's that. Samaje Perine. So Perine buried me last week. Chase Brown does have some incentives where they are looking to get him yardage. I would rather look to Perine in game. I could have given Perine over rush yards and anytime touchdown today. I do have an edge on both, so I don't mind this. I would rather just play it though to see if Chase Brown gets off to a good start in that game, because if he does, Perine will get a lot of snaps later on in the game. So I think that is a good one. Maliki Mataval, I didn't play him this week, which means that maybe it's the week. He was on the field and did get 2 catches last week. You rarely get that for a guy we played at that price, but I don't hate it. Looks like more Riley Leonard and Trey Lance. Hard to price those. I don't have an edge on either one, if I'm being honest, but I know you guys are leaning into the scrambling quarterbacks. Ollie Gordon, this is with Devon Achane out. The problem is I don't see the Dolphins scoring much offensively. I would wait to see if their center Aaron Brewer is going to be active today, as well as Austin Jackson at right tackle. If those guys are in, I don't mind this. I don't mind this at all. All right, let's see what else we got going on here. Rams, Jarquez Hunter, 14-1. Same thing. Like, I think you're kind of gambling here on whether or not Kyron Williams or Blake Corum play today. They also have Ronnie Rivers on the roster. I don't hate it. I priced it at plus 1650, around there. Cameron Ward, 13-1 at FanDuel. I make Cam Ward. I mean, that's a good one. I don't know if that still exists. I made Cam Ward like 11-1. So that one is fine. Hopefully you got that one in already. Pop Douglas, another good option. I was debating between Pop Douglas and Kyle Williams towards the end. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, plus 380. God, that offense is so miserable right now. I don't like that, personally. Anyone I say I don't like, I can't wait for them to score touchdowns afterwards. I make MVS plus 447 as my fare in that game. He gets such limited targets. I do think they'll take some shots downfield, though. I really do. Tanner McKee tush push. This one is beyond me. I didn't even try to price anything in that game. Did not try to price anything in that one. All right. I think I got most of them here. Actually, no, there's a few more. Sal Cannella. Let me see what I got him priced at. We're going Browns tight end situation as well. I don't have this as an edge, but that's because I prefer the Blake Whiteheart look. I could be completely wrong on the rotation there, though, if I'm being completely honest. Schoonmaker 7-1 is not bad at all. I know Ferguson is active. I believe the Cowboys are going to give their backups a lot of looks at some point. Okay. Appreciate everyone who tuned in today. I got some Uber Eats showing up now, so I stuck around for a little bit longer, but that's going to be a wrap on week 18 of the Pizza Buffet. And honestly, it's a wrap on the regular season as well. First off, thank you to everyone who tuned in this year. Thank you to everyone who hung out in the chat every Sunday. I don't take that for granted. This has been, without question, the best season I think I will ever have betting the NFL. A huge part of it, and what made it fun for me, was having you guys live here every week, talking through numbers, news, all the chaos with me week after week. All the little things that people do to support this channel, they matter more than you think. Hitting like, subscribing, sharing the show with a buddy, dropping a comment, throwing topics in the chat, telling people where you watch. It all adds up. If you want to keep riding with us, you can also join the free Hammer Discord, discord.gg/hammer. It's where a lot of day-to-day conversation happens, especially when the news starts flying. Shout out, as always, to our presenting sponsor, FanDuel. Big thank you to my producer, Pascal Prince, Caustic Arrow, behind the scenes, for keeping everything running smoothly today. Appreciate everyone. Good luck in the final week of the season. I hope you close it out with a bang. Then we flip the page to playoff ball. I'll be back with a pizza buffet next Saturday to get you set for Wild Card Weekend. Appreciate you guys. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Peace out.